Today, I'm joined by Paige O'Donnell and Caitlin Field from MotherMind's Education. Paige and Caitlin are guides in heart-centered homeschooling and family learning, and therefore, we welcome you to a space where connection, curiosity, and family-centered learning comes first. Paige and Caitlin are passionate mothers, educators, homeschooling advocates, and the creators of a thoughtfully designed homeschooling curriculum that nurtures both the child and the parent educator at home with stress-free curriculum and step-by-step simple lessons. With a shared love for mindful education and authentic connection, Paige and Caitlin bring warmth, insight, and real life experience to everything they do, and you'll see that when you check them out on Instagram by finding them at MotherMinds. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I'm really super excited about this conversation. I've told you that I homeschool, so right back at the beginning of this podcast, I did a couple of little mini episodes about my own experience, but I haven't had anyone on talking about homeschooling. Now I've got two pros, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. So thank you so much for sitting through that introduction.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. You probably teach us a thing or two as well from your homeschooling experience.
Maybe.
Because it's such a vast, open world where everyone does it so differently. Everyone talks about it so differently. Everyone has their different beliefs and values around why they want to homeschool. And that's what makes it so unique, is that it's tailored so specifically differently to every single family. So hearing someone else's journey and their background, we'll have to go back and listen to that. We haven't listened to your homeschooling podcast.
Okay, but they're just a few short, they're kind of like almost personal reflections on my experience as we started getting into it, because my two kids are, Louis 10 and Winnie's nearly 9. So we started 2 years ago. We pulled them out of school. So like rather than starting right out, with the homeschooling journey from the beginning, we had some experiences at school, but there's that whole kind of like undoing what's happened at school.
And that's the great experience. You've seen both sides of it. You've been in the schooling system, you've come into the homeschooling space, and you've got a great perspective of what both of them look like and how your children react differently to both of those different spaces.
Totally. It's
congratulations on coming to 2 years, because we all celebrate for your children, because it's huge. It's 2 years into that is so much learning along the way.
If I had my
parents on the children.
Yeah, totally. I think if I had my time again, I never would have put them in school. But hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, don't know what we don't know. It's one of our favourite sayings.
Yeah,
it's always learning. Don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So do you want to? So we've got a lot to talk about, and you guys are really pioneering some great stuff in the homeschool community. What do I say? Just the world of homeschooling, which is amazing. And so we want to get the message out there for people. But let's start by with the basics. Who are you? I gave you a little intro, and so obviously we know what we're going to be talking about. But if you want to give us a little bit of background about how each of you sort of came to this point.
Definitely. We'd love to do that first.
Well, maybe you start, because I came into your world.
Okay.
After you've been doing this for a couple of years. Yeah. So maybe you start and then I'll join in.
I'm going to try and do my short story here. But I graduated, so I did my teaching degrees, my Bachelor of Early Childhood Teaching, and I absolutely loved my degree where I did my bachelor's. It was a very heavy focus on play and play development and brain development. So taking that passion into my first few years of teaching was kind of put at a big halt, because all that passion that I had throughout my degree, kind of seeing the reality of what that looks like and our capacity as teachers to be able to make that a quality experience where there's a balance for teachers, where there's a balance for children, for little children. I think it was reminding myself that these are 4 and 5 year olds, or even 6 and 7 year olds, or even 8 and 9 year olds. They're still little people. So it was a big, I guess, rush into it all as a teacher, and not having that expectation of maybe what I thought it would be, but still having that identity as a teacher, and absolutely loving getting to teach and guide and learn alongside children. But very quickly, I think the experience in working in the public education system took it from my soul, and it was soul depleting, I think, in seeing how much is taken from children in such a short amount of time. And the main idea of protecting children's innocence really was on my heart and on my mind when I just felt I was giving everything I could and it never was enough. So I was just coming into my final prac, and I had just had my daughter. She was 11 weeks old, and she was staying with her dad. So that was really great in the support for me. But I think that was the pivotal point of really having that realization that I love what I do. I know I'm a good teacher, but there is just never a point where even me as a teacher in the classroom that I would want my daughter in that environment. And the same could go. I could look at the teachers around me and really be inspired and in awe about how much they put into what they do and how quickly that becomes depleted. So the quality for all stakeholders, I think, all the way up the line. And there is a lot of passionate teachers who do incredible work, but for my 4 years in different age groups and different schools, it never felt like it was the right thing for me, for children. And then I think that pinpoint was for my own daughter. So just as COVID kind of hit, I was no longer able to continue working at my schools. So I decided to start MotherMind, which started off under a big tree. It was the day that we were supposed to be wearing masks and we weren't supposed to gather. But there was about 20 mothers and fathers. It was whole families who came to gather under the tree. We didn't wear masks. It felt, just liberating. And I think COVID was a really big pinpoint when parents started to have that belief in themselves that school isn't what it needed to be in that time when, education was put on hold. They didn't want education to be put on hold. So there was a little bit of belief in themselves that they could maybe take back some of that power. And I think the growth in homeschooling, COVID was a big blessing, try to look at the lights of those types of things in how many parents and families have reclaimed that power in their belief in themselves to be able to educate. So I think from that time, MotherMind, my in-person program, grew more than what I could ever hope for. And so did my belief in how quality teaching and my love of literacy and numeracy and early childhood learning as a whole process, as a whole child approach, completely changed to what I knew. So the unlearning, like children who come out of the schooling system into homeschooling, was a lot of unlearning for me. Probably feel coming into the 4th year that we're maybe just getting there now. We use the term Goldie, and it's just when it feels right. The word Goldie is when it feels right for everyone, for the kids, for families. There's huge trust, I think, especially for homeschooling families when they've reclaimed that power back, and then giving that trust to others as well in that education, and that it's right for their values and the strong beliefs that they have for their children and their families that they haven't been able to find anywhere else. And then along that journey, Caitlin came with her daughter, Callie, as a family. And Callie had a little bit of a difficult transition away from mum because Caitlin had spent every second, I think, with Callie since she was born. And
it's like 3 years of attachment parenting and then saying, all right, we're going to start going to this homeschooling drop and leave program. And she was okay. She was kind of okay for the first couple of times. And then she realised, hold on, mum's not here for several hours. And I was raising our second daughter at the time. So I was breastfeeding her and putting her down for her naps. And it kind of worked really well that I could drop and leave and then give my full focus to my newborn. But then Callie didn't really agree with that. So I had to listen to her and put trust in the process.
So Caitlin stayed. So the transition was that Caitlin would just stay and be there with Callie. So Caitlin had Skylar in the carrier. And it just so happened to be that Caitlin, as she is, just was jumping in, a part of all the activities. She would say, hey, I've got a really good idea for next week. Can I organise it? And I said, absolutely. And it just got to a point where Caitlin was so involved in the interactions and just everything, the way that she spoke to the children, the language, it was just made sense for her to stay and for her to work, which was another vision of mine, I think, in, the way that we do things and how it works for everyone, that mothers can work while we're caring for our babies, and trying to advocate for ways that we can do that. And also being able to listen to children when they want their person there. And then from there, Caitlin and I have just kind of continued working together in the space of just trying to really bring quality to what we envision education and care to look like, within the boundaries that we have, because we're kind of in a bit of a grey zone with that. And then from there, so came the vision of seeing the gaps. I think our girls are coming into our compulsory schooling age, so we'd be enrolling for homeschooling this year, and seeing, I think for me as a teacher, over the last 3 years, I've had the same group of children for 3 years, and seeing how less of formal teaching time that we're doing. But when I'm starting to compare the results or the learning outcomes, if they were in a schooling setting, because I think that's a big fear of parents who are homeschooling sometimes, in being able to advocate that while they're doing, what the outside view as just, they're just playing all day, but there's learning happening all throughout that, such quality learning. And sometimes having something tangible to say, if they were in a school setting, this is what they should be sitting around, and not that, there's any one mark or there's any one number, but sometimes having those measures are powerful as well, in being able to advocate for the learning that we do and how different it can look for children. And I guess then came the decision for wanting to put the curriculum together to be able to continue to empower families to have that in hand if they need to. That was, I guess, the gap that we were seeing in wanting to continue to empower families to be able to homeschool whatever approach they are currently in isn't working, or even if they're loving it, if we can take the stress off and the overwhelm that little bit more in what we have, literacy and numeracy as a sub-subject to everything else that we do within the program. And just how much the children love it, and it never has to look a particular way, but how short it can be, how long it can be if they're really enjoying it one day, and wanting to pass that on to make that accessible to other parents and to other families.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Caitlin, do you want to say
Yeah,
anything? No offense, Paige. That was brilliant intro, and I had all of these things going off in my mind. I'm like, just stay in the moment.
Yeah. I'll kind of go back to
we got a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, I'll go back to when I first met Paige, and a little bit of my side of that story as well. Was when I came into the space and I was doing the drop and leave program with my daughter, and I had been looking for so long for something. Actually, I'll backtrack a little bit more about why we had chosen this journey of conscious parenting, homeschooling, attached parenting, all the things that we chose to do raising our two daughters. My partner and I were living over in Bali for 2 years, and in that time prior to children, this is a couple of years before the kids, when we were living there, we met this girl Hanalia, and she was about 8 or 9 years old, and she came to us, and we were sitting at the bar at this beach bar in Canggu in Bali, and she came up to us one day and had this adult conversation with us, fluently talking, beautiful conversation. We just thought, how mature is this girl? We could ask her anything. She can confidently answer. She's holding herself incredibly well. So then we started to get to know her over a couple of weeks and months of being down there. We met the parents. They were both very high in network marketing, not sure what company, but they were very high in network marketing. They world schooled their daughter, and they were living in Bali for several years with her. And one of the things that we said to them is just how confident she is compared to all the other kids we've met. And what are you guys doing? What's different about Hanalia's life? And they said, we've homeschooled her since she was 3-4 years old. We've exposed her to a different way of living. We haven't almost dumbed down the way of her education. We've actually influenced her education to be tenfold. And we were like, okay, what does that mean? Because again, we weren't parents at the time, so we didn't understand this language. We're like, what do you mean? And they said, instead of asking her, what do you want to be when you're older? Every day we ask her, what do you want to be today? What do you want to do today that is going to make an impact? And we're like, you're asking a 7-year-old that? Isn't that heavy or putting weight on her shoulders? And they're like, no, it's allowing her to just be present, to live in the moment. If today she wants to be a dancer, we're going to put it on and we're going to rock out to dance music all day. If tomorrow she wants to be a fashion designer, we're going to work with fabrics and we're going to get her a sewing machine, and we're going to find her passion at a young age so she can, from a young age, know who she is and build that belief and build her self-esteem. And Kane and I are sitting there like, holy smokes, that's the way we want to parent. And that was such a pivotal moment for us, because we looked at each other and we were like, when we have kids and when we're ready, whatever we do, it's going to be that. And we're going to take on board so much of what those parents had taught us in that 10, 15-minute conversation. And we want to raise our children that way. So then after 2.5 years, we then had our little girl, Callie, and we were still in Bali until I was about 5 months pregnant. Then I came back to Australia. And when we came back, we then said, okay, are we still going to follow what we said we were always going to do in Bali when we met Hanalia 2.5 years ago? And it was just an absolute yes from both of us. Like, nothing's going to change. Our beliefs are so strong in how we want to raise our daughter and how we want both of our children to be raised with their self-esteem and building their self-worth from a young age. So when we came back to Perth, and Callie was then about 3.5, so again, fast-tracking a few years, when she was 3.5, we were looking for a program to put her in, and then I came across Paige. So long story short, came across Paige, and then once we did the Drop and Leave program and I saw Paige and I met Andrea, who was another facilitator helping Paige, I was like, these women, just as women, are incredible. They're mums, they're working mums, they're juggling everything, just incredible. I just really took my hat off to them, and I was like, wow, these are the people I want to surround myself with. And when you talk about your circle of influence and the people you spend the most time with are the people you become like. And I was like, I love the way that Paige spoke to the children, and I loved how gentle but playful Andrea was with the children. And I was like, I can see all of these elements of these women in me. And I was like, wow, I found my people, I found my community, and I'm meeting the other mums who were very holistic minded. Everyone was using homeopathics and everyone was just on this, I don't know, just like, wow, I found my people. So finally I felt really at home. And then I feel when I then saw the program in action, I was saying to Paige, yeah, I've got these ideas and I love that. And can we do this different? And can we and it was just this natural flow where Paige was so open to the communication. And we realized that one of our biggest strengths together is communicating. We are so fluently open with our communication that nothing is left unturned. We can talk about everything with love and compassion, constructive feedback, and it's all welcomed through our communication. So then when Paige said, do you actually want to come and spend a few days here working with your daughter being here and have Skylar in the carrier? It was like, yeah, absolutely. You guys are my people, and I just want to spend as much time as I possibly can with you. So then fast tracking that again to then where Callie is now at 5.5, which is the WA registered homeschooling age. Paige and I were going through different curriculums, and we were looking and we were thinking, what are the curriculums that align with our beliefs and what we're already doing with the MotherMind's in-person program that would all align to be that next step for our families and our beliefs. And we couldn't find the exact perfect fit. And there was many different reasons. There was amazing programs out there, some incredible curriculums, but the ones that really just touched on the numeracy and literacy foundations for children between 3 and 7, we couldn't find the ones that felt right for us. So we looked at each other one day and we're like, well, we've got the knowledge. Why don't we just create it? Like, let's just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we'd already been doing it in the in-person program, and with Paige's expertise in education and my background being in business, we thought, well, we've both got the brains to put this together and make it come to fruition. So that's kind of where the curriculum came about. And then being able to actually do that now with our own children and see it play out in front of us has just been incredible.
Yeah.
And then sharing that with the families that we also have in the in-person program. They take the curriculums home and they can do that, and they can purchase it and use it wherever they want in their life and through their day-to-day life. So it's all coming to fruition of what we envisioned, and the greater vision is, it's still to come, but we're
talk about that later. Let's save that bit.
Yeah. There's only so many hours in a day. That's what we'll talk about with the vision. It's like, just need more hours and more time in the day, but we are absolutely making headway with what we want to do.
The one thing that really not the one thing, but one thing that really stands out for me from what you both just said is this idea of community. When I was with my friend, because I lived in Sydney and everything's quite insular, I guess, you're just everyone, the family unit's just doing their own thing. And I was spending some time, our family was staying with another family, and that this kind of interplay with the mums of like, I did the cooking, she took them to the park, she got them in the bath, I put them to bed, and there was this like natural flow. And it sounds like part of your process has been that kind of thing. It's like not just about the education. The education's kind of obviously a really important part of it, because that's what about, but that community and that sense of like, and like, I know the men have a part to do with it as well, but the mums really pulling together. They're the ones that hold the families together. And that's something that we really miss in today's society, right? I live away from my family as well. So even that, grandparents, uncles, aunties, you really can feel that you're sort of creating those sorts of connections for your family.
Yeah, we have at the in-person program, when some of the parents come in, and I think I'm really, really good at this, where I just like wrap my arms around people and I'm just like, I've got you. I'm just going to hold space for you. And there's been a few parents over the years that have just come in and I've just held them and just said, are you okay? And it's just that really genuine, sincere, are you okay? I'm just going to hold space for you for a minute to just say whatever you need to say. And sometimes it's just been, no, I'm not. And then it's like, okay, let's take this aside and let's have a chat and just make sure you're okay. Because it's not just about us holding space for the children in the program. It's making sure, like you said about the community, it's the whole family unit, and making sure that when the families come here, that they feel welcome and at home here just as much as the children do. Making sure that, we hold the space for everyone as a whole.
There's been so many times, and I think that there's these little moments that there's a pinch me kind of in what it is we have created, where I sit with the children kind of on arrival, and there has been just so many times that I can envision where I have looked up and just seen Caitlin giving a big cuddle to the families. And I think in the space we talk about that we need a village to raise a child, but it is the truth in the fact of that is that there's often, where is the village? Because a lot of families are isolated, and that has been something on our mind a lot lately in ways that we can create more community and reprieve for mothers. And the focus that has been previously is just in creating such an incredible environment for them to feel safe for their children to come to, so that they can have that time and space. And I feel like, going back to that word Goldie, it's like we've been really just hitting that mark in beautiful transitions. The children just come in feeling safe and calm, so families are able just to transition as well into taking that space within the day. And now that we feel we've got a really good lead on that, it has been reaching out more and looking at doing meal trains and looking at doing mums nights, book clubs. It's all those simple things that I think in such fast-paced world, so simple things, even just a book club, in that, having that connection and something that you can all relate to is missed. It's very much missed. Sometimes you nurture the mother and that nurtures the child more. So you take hold in what we could do.
And it sounds like you have this natural evolution where your families will be together and your children will grow together. And there may be some that come and go, because I feel like sometimes, like homeschooling communities, there can be a little bit of transience. There's some people that try it and then decide not to and whatnot. But that sense that you're going through that whole journey together as a people, and that your children will know each other from from 3 or 4 right up until they.
Yeah. We have a few children who started with me when they were 3, and they're turning 7 this year. And even my daughter, when they were 3, she was 1, and she was coming with me to run those programs. So she's also grown with them as well. And our girls may as well be sisters. They argue like they're sisters, but it's because there's that such comfort and such love, and vice versa. The mothering that we do, sometimes it works better for me to kind of respond to that behaviour, because they have the respect for both of us as well. And that's, I think a space of allowing them to be who they are, but feeling safe with the connections they've made with many of the adults that we've had in the space that are all safe people.
And it is nice having someone else there. There's just days with my Skylar, 3 years old, when she was 2 years old. So last year when we were going through the program, there was just some days where, as a mum, everyone would relate. You're just like, I can't process your emotions. I can't deal with mine right now. It's just too much. And Paige would see that I'm just like, whoa, I've put up a wall and I'm just like at my end of the tether for the end of the day. And then Paige would just step in and she'd be like, Skylar, come with me. And then she would just breathe and she'll sit with Skylar, hold her hand, give her a cuddle. And it's amazing to see, like, when I just can't hold any more space for that moment, that Paige just comes and swoops in. And it's like what you said about, your friends, like you're
what it's supposed to be, and, right?
Yeah, that's where the village feels like it's really comforting. You've got those people around you.
Yeah, it might make your head explode a little bit thinking about, like, as your kids get older and what you're going to do with how you're going to fit it all in with the younger ones coming through and Yeah, it's gonna get, it could get big, right?
And that's the evolution of the program, is really looking at how we're evolving the program and where that's going to go. Is it's going with the growth of our children as well, with my daughter being 5, Layla being 4, and then Skylar being 3. They're so close in age that the group will just, the way that we will just continue the homeschooling group will just be in the evolution of our children's age. And we will just enroll children at that same age group so we can keep the growth.
Yeah, you've already thought about that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Very thorough. We're very thorough with everything.
Well, I was just thinking, Leno, is yours are kind of like in their teens, and then there's all these other people that want to do it, like, so many children, how are we going to do it?
Our children will be done with us by then. They'll be like, come on, Mum, let us read.
But I feel like that was the thought of even what you found as a mother in finding that support and that community there. And although this is what we've created, I do feel like it is still very rare. And so that has been on my mind as we do move through. And it's so lucky that we're able to service these families who we have the capacity for. But it is still that these options for families are quite minimal. Mm-hmm. And the capacity and how we're able to create more spaces like this is still quite restricted. So that was kind of that main thing on now that we have just kind of, in our little tiny context, but how do we reach that further? And I think, like you said, with homeschooling families coming and going because it might not just work, that's where the curriculum came in how can we support them so that it can work for as many families in different contexts as much as possible, whether they're on cattle farms, whether they're world schooling, whether they're unschooling, in just having something that is still, everyone has to work with the moderators and have to show a plan, and also having the parents feeling empowered in their capabilities, but being able to further the reach outside of who are just within our inner circle too.
Yeah. You pretty much answered, like in your intro, Paige, you answered pretty much like what I was going to ask you a little bit about, why homeschool. And I think as a teacher, you answered that at the beginning, that the system doesn't really suit the needs of the teachers or the children very well. The system hasn't really changed and what we learn hasn't really changed for like 100 years. But can you talk a bit about... Sorry, go.
Sorry. One thing in my short time, say 5 years max as a teacher, when I was in kindy and pre-primary, which is 4 and 5 year olds and 5 and 6 year olds, one thing that still shocked me was working alongside teachers who'd been teaching for 20 years and them saying how different it is. And I think what has changed is that there's been a huge pushback on that academic expectancy and less play and less just, again, that the innocence of children. So, yes, the model hasn't changed, but I definitely think, at least within the last 5 years, 10 years, there has been a big push down. And, what children were maybe doing in year 1, they're now doing at the start of pre-primary. And what pre-primary children were doing, they're now doing when they're 4. And... Okay. Yeah, that is the big problem, and I think that's a part of what isn't working. And it's not to say that it doesn't work for everyone, because I'm really careful in sometimes too. Sometimes parents' best option for whatever reason is to put their child in school, and it's not to say that it doesn't always work, but I think having the conversations on the potential impacts and actually just having more conversations about ways we can support families if they're needing to look for something different is what's important.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, that we're not against parents who do choose to put their kids in school. We need to be really clear about that we understand everyone is on such a different journey and path, and every child is so different and their needs are so different. But from what we've seen, and we've had families go through our program and then it's a very low minority, but they have put their children into the school system of whatever it looks like. And they're doing so well. They're loving it. But what we reflect on is they've had a few years of the foundation being built us here, where they've had the emotional regulation.
Yes.
They've had a deep understanding of the foundations of numeracy and literacy. So they're not fearful of learning. We teach the love for learning. And we make that so play-based, and they're constantly constantly exposed, always using their voice. And If they have an idea, it's like, yell it out, tell us your idea. Like, don't hold back and put your hand up. Like, just throw that at us. Give us your ideas. Give us your curious questions. And it's so refreshing to see the kids just be themselves. And that gets, at some point, it gets shut down within the schooling system. So a big thing of why we choose to go this way, and a big belief for both of us, I would say, is to help the children to regulate themselves, to have a great nervous system and self-worth before they go further in their schooling journey of whatever that looks like. If that's homeschooling groups, if that's public groups, if that's public schooling, private schooling, if they have that foundation built within themselves, it's between, as we know, between the ages of 0 and 7 is when a child builds their self-worth, their self-esteem, and their CD is programmed in their brain between 0 and 7. So those are the most crucial years for us to help influence the best way we can on these children.
Yeah, definitely. Caitlin, and this kind of connects these two things, because I think that you, Paige, you mentioned that the school teachers that have been doing it for a long time, they've seen a big change in how the system works, and I think and this kind of connects with that idea of attachment parenting. So historically, back in the day, a child would be, when they went to school, they would have some attachment to the teacher, right? And gradually that has started to diminish with higher expectations on the teacher to meet the requirements, but also, there's that I think that there's that sense that you have to kind of be a bit hands off with kids.
Right. Yes. So much so. I am so opposite at our program.
And so the kids start to attach to their peers, which isn't healthy, because the peers aren't.
I have to share this with you. It was written in a teacher training one time, and I just I actually did say, it was do not hug the children. And if they come in for a hug, we put our hands on and slightly push back. And I said, I'm sorry, but if a 5-year-old in my class is crying, the one and only thing they need is the cuddle. And that literature, that having that writing there, speculating that. And I said, we are not meeting even the rights of children for connection. And when they are, there as much as they are 8 hours a day, making that attachment to that other adult who is in their life. And even that it's actually instructed. It was in the meeting, I've had it in trainings, and I've emailed back every time and saying, I'm sorry, but this is not something that I can follow, because
good on you.
Everyone needs
and you can kind of understand it, but there is a fair bit of fear attached to that as well, isn't there? Because you can understand it. We don't want our children to be, abused or whatever. But that's like surely if a teacher's gone through a specific training and they've done their children's checks and that sort of thing, we can feel confident that they're going to be in a position.
The teachers. There's not anything wrong with the teachers in teaching in the system. The teachers are just underpaid, burnt out and tired and exhausted of following the rules and expectations that are put upon them, the heavy curriculum that's put upon them to teach. And if the children aren't meeting the curriculum standards in their classroom, it falls back onto the teacher, and then it makes the teacher. Okay. So the teacher puts more pressure on the children. The problem is not the teacher. The teachers are doing the most incredible job. It's the system and the support group around them that isn't supporting them. And we did an advert for someone. We were looking for someone to come and work alongside us. We just on one of the teacher pages, we just send us an email. This is what we're looking for.
We don't want a resume.
We don't want a resume. We just want a real person to come to us. Send us an email about yourself. Just give us a bit. We're going to get on a video call with you and have a chat. And the amount of emails we got of teachers that were like, I've left the school system. I'm trying to exit the school system. Can you give me a job opportunity? It was flourishing through. And we were like, wow, the demand for what we've got here is what the teachers want out. They don't know how to get out, but they don't want to leave the children behind either. Yes. They want to take the children with them because they cherish and value what they can do in changing children's lives. It's just some points.
All of the red tape.
All the red tape.
Yeah, that's a real shit, isn't it?
It
is. Yeah. It's a mess, right?
It's a mess, yeah.
Can you talk about that? Before we move on to, I want to talk about a whole bunch of things still. The emotional well-being of a child. You touched on that. Where the difference it can make being in a homeschooling environment compared to a school environment, how they can learn to regulate their emotions or not regulate their emotions, but have their emotions accepted, right, for what they are and acknowledged and not shut down. Like what are some of the things that you do and the benefits of homeschooling for children and that area of their lives?
I'll start with one point which most people probably don't consider or even think about, and it's about the uniforms. We have children come in every day, and we've discussed about, should we get, our program is called MotherMinds and the program is called Sunflowers. So we're like, should we get sunflower hats? Should we get sunflower shirts? Should we do this? Should we do it? But one beautiful thing that we really love is when the children rock up, and we've got one girl, Sophie, my daughter, Callie, that's a few other girls and boys who rock up, and they are in their element. Like, they've dressed themselves for the day, and the parents come in, they're like, children have dressed themselves for the day. It's a bit mixed match, but we love it because it's like, this is their way of expressing themselves, and having the children rock up in who they truly are, what they truly feel comfortable in. They're not forced to wear something. I remember my schooling time, the amount of, I went to a private high school, the amount of arguments I had with mum about putting on my tie, having my top button done, my skirt had to be perfectly pleated, everything had to be like, your socks had to be the right height, everything was so like rigid. So that created such a dampened feeling on my nervous system. First thing in the morning before I was getting to school, because I was having these arguments about my bloody uniform. We shouldn't be arguing about that with the parents at home before you even get to school. Then you get to school and you're still being disciplined about it, and you've got nail polish on, that has to be taken off. You've got this. So these constant rules that you're abiding by, that you can't express who you truly are. And you're almost limited because you have to fit into the box of what they want a student to look like. So the freedom that we give the children here is,
and homeschooling,
to just fully express yourself and to have a space where they're safe to do that. It's huge.
And I think the language too. So a big part of whether I'm working in schools, I've worked at the children's prison, it's the same language that comes about. I use the zones of regulation, but it's giving children language in being able, language and the knowledge and the practice and the modelling as parents to check in and to be able to identify where they're at, communicate where they're at, and then take responsibility for the tools they use in moving through. So, for example, we sit down in the morning and I say to the children, we have parts of our day. A part of the day is that we were at home, then we came to Sunflower, so we had the car ride. We might have come in and we might have been feeling blue zone, yellow zone. So we talk about all those zones and the emotions that are in them. Can you sit down and check in now that we're having some food, check in with how your body's feeling? Sometimes we share it, sometimes we don't. If they want to share it, a lot of the time they do. I'll often say to them, I woke up feeling really blue zone this morning, really, really tired. But what I needed to do was have some water, stretch my body. We might do a strategy all together of a deep breath strategy. And I think in regards to emotional regulation, and I think what is so important in what we can do with homeschooling is fill those gaps in the learning and the education, in what humans need or what our future needs or what the world needs. And for me, I think, how I was raised and how our parents were taught to raise us, where it was, be quiet, children are seen and not heard. It's explicitly teaching those skills of empathy, explicitly teaching those. I mean, it's within children, but also when they're experimenting with what that looks like, or they're experimenting if that's not being done to them. We get to have that opportunity for freedom in knowing the gaps in what children need to be confident and their self-esteem and their self-confidence, and to really make that a part of their education, their learning too. And I think a big part of that is also that parents are educating themselves as well. And I think for homeschooling families, we're with our children a lot. We're probably still taking on a lot of the household tasks. We're probably still supporting partners, doing all of those mental load things. So part of that emotional regulation for our children, but parents putting in that practice as well. And we're holding space for our children to do that as well, which I think is where homeschooling children get that opportunity a lot more. but parents need that support and education in their self-regulation as well, and what they need to fill their cup up.
Yeah, cool. Okay, still got a really long list.
Sorry, we both special.
I think you've sold us on the homeschooling. I love it. Like, it is hard sometimes. Like, it's hard. Like, being with your kids all the time. But like, and I think that part of that is like there's. Like, obviously you've talked about working and being able to have your children with you, and like how you've created that, and we've done that here as well, but there's a big part of it where there's that, you know, societal sort of expectation that you should go out to work and therefore you're not with your kids. And so I have to kind of go, hang on a minute, it's actually okay, and it's actually quite normal to be with my children all the time. And they do drive you up the wall sometimes, but like, it's normal to hang out with your kids all the time.
And being around more people that accept that and don't make you feel any particular way for how parenting looks for you at that point in time.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about your styles of education, because there's a whole bunch of different styles, and you've talked about your curriculum and that you were kind of you created it because that you felt that there were bits missing, right? So with, you know, I think of styles like Montessori or Steiner or like unschooling or child-led learning. Do you have a specific philosophy that you follow?
I'm going to say no, because one thing that I'd be very careful when having conversations, and I think going a little bit more in this space in how we do it, is that it's like in any context, it can be very cliquey and very nichey to how certain people with certain beliefs think it needs to look and feel. And for example, I love Montessori, and when my daughter was 1 and 2, I set her up dressing stations, self-feeding. It wasn't really her interest. And it got to a point where, do I just keep sticking with it because this is how I envisioned that we would do things, and she will learn to love it if I keep going with it? Or do I just take the pressure of myself and respond to her and respond to me? And having that approach with flexibility and not having it to look a certain way. And one thing that I feel also holds families back is the overwhelm of, one, it needs to look a certain way. I should be doing it like this. And for me, there's so many parts of different modalities and different pedagogies that are all amazing. And what I find with having children be allowed to show up and learn as they need to at that point in time, we're constantly using different aspects of them all. We're using inquiry-based. Some children who absolutely love come and sitting and doing explicit teaching will finish their inquiry with Caitlin and then come and join me. I always think if I'm asking a child to come and sit with me to follow our curriculum and they say no, what they're probably doing is worth more to them, or they'll get more out of that than if I stop them to bring them to me. And then 9 times out of 10, once they're finished, they come to me and they say, hey, can we do that now? So, you know, and the same thing, I think, with the word curriculum and homeschooling, where the space of, you know, Finland is such a big kind of topic in that no formal education. And again, it's that
no formal education
until 7. And for me, I've had children who their parents have really wanted them to do that learning with me here, and they've had absolutely no interest. So it's just been an exposure thing. And, you know, and then that changes. It might change at 5, it might change at 6, but am I going to not follow that interest because of my belief, or am I going to let them lead as much as what we're leading as well? So that was a big part of I think, my unlearning as a teacher, in being able to really pull from lots of different things that I love, of theories and of pedagogies. And reflection is a big process, and I think reflection for homeschooling families as well. It doesn't have to be one way. And I think being able to honour how that changes in your life and for their lives too. And
like constantly asking questions to yourself. Am I doing this Montessori for my 2-3-year-old because I want it to look this way? Or is the question, is this serving our family right now? Is this going to be the best for this phase and this age? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to stay rigid in a box because the Montessori book said to do it this way, or the Montessori Instagram said this is the best way to do it? And what we've looked at is all the different methodologies and gone, okay, we're just taking a little bit from everything that we really believe in and that we've seen work with the children. And like Paige said, some children will say, yes, I'm so ready to learn now. Others will say, I'm going to come back in 10 minutes because I really want to finish building my Lego inquiry and I really want to finish this construction. And it's like, great, that's what you are thoroughly passionate about. Go finish that. And when you're ready, we're going to hold space for you. And that's the freedom of our program too, and that we're trying to educate the parents with the curriculum, is to allow the love for learning with your child. One of our curriculum users curriculum members has just come to us and said, my daughter doesn't want to do anything else but the rhyming segment in our curriculum. And we're like, great,
keep the rhyming going. You just like absolutely nailed rhyme teaching then. So just go with that for a little while.
If that's her love for learning, start every session of your homeschooling with 5 minutes of rhyme and then get into the lesson. And just make that through the day. And what you were saying before, Paige, about the words curriculum, it can sometimes really dawn on people like, a curriculum, that sounds like a heavy word, that sounds a little bit scary, but it's not. We have built this lesson plan with the vision that parents can do this on the go, anywhere. I do it with my kids in the car most days before we even get to the Sunflowers program. We're doing it for that 10-minute drive in the car, and that's all we have to do for the day. Anything additional to that, they're getting explicitly taught, or they're having exposure to new modalities throughout the day. And that's all we want to do, is educate parents in the homeschooling space between the ages of 3 and 7. We want to give exposure of learning and just create a love for learning between that age group. So when they're 7, 8, 9, 10, they have the foundations already built. They have a love for learning and they want to succeed. And just using the two subjects that we've chosen, with numeracy and literacy being the foundations, children get so much exposure through their daily life, whether they're cooking with mum, whether they're doing mechanic work in the garage with dad, whether they're out with their grandparents, they're out in nature. They're getting so much exposure to natural science and natural physical education and all these things that they don't need, in our beliefs, at this age group between 3 and 7, they don't need to be explicitly taught these subjects, because it happens through life. And that's a little bit about the unschooling and a little bit about the life and world schooling, is we've kind of pulled in all those elements and gone, what are the core foundations? How can we make this one so simple for the child's nervous system to absorb all the information? They need literacy and numeracy.
Language to communicate, to ask questions, to speak their voice. And that's how that's kind of a bit. And numeracy, the skills are to inquire, to investigate, which is science language too, but to do critical thinkers. And that's, that's right. The skills as humans that just already come into literacy and numeracy, and just so easily lend itself to all those other subject areas.
So just building the curriculum to make sure it's simple for parents to follow. It's not overwhelming. We don't want parents to get the curriculum and go, this is so overwhelming, how am I going to follow this? Which is what happened when I purchased a few curriculums. I was like, I can't imagine teaching my daughter that in a day. We're not sitting at the table for 2.5 hours at the age of 5.5. That's not realistic. We don't want parents doing that. We don't think that that's healthy for a child to be locked in a chair for that long period of time. So we constructed the lessons to be short, sweet, educational, hit the point. It's step-by-step for what the parents need to say to the child. It is just so simple and beautiful how it all came together.
Amazing. I think one of the things that I've experienced as a homeschool parent is that, well, Louis and Winnie both went to school for a couple of years. So when we pulled them out, there is that, a lot of the unschooling was the parent unschooling. And I think, Paige, you even sort of touched on that as a teacher. You had to kind of unschool yourself for a bit because there's all those expectations of what it should look like. But the biggest aha moment for me is like when my it's like that love of learning that they kind of lose when they're at school, because they're made to sit down and just learn a whole bunch of stuff.
They don't have permission.
Irrelevant.
They don't have permission.
No.
To follow interest, or I think if I was just sitting down to do something and Caitlin said to me, come over here and start writing now, and I think I enjoy writing, but I don't really feel like writing
for it right now.
And then Caitlin says, well, you can't go and eat your lunch on the couch outside if you don't write right now. And that's just the,
we wouldn't put up with it, would we, as grown-ups?
No. The discipline and pressure that the children are under is, anyway, long story short, that's what we're trying to alleviate.
Yeah.
Giving parents the option, if they're schooling at the moment, but they want an option of how can I homeschool? I have no idea where to start, no idea what to do. It's like, okay, we've got you at MotherMinds. We're going to teach you. We're going to show you the way. And that's
amazing.
But how did you went through an unlearning process? Like,
wow, look,
for everyone, kind of having that break, and how did you find that?
I gave myself a really hard time at the start, and I was like, it needs to look like this, and we had our assessment. We're in New South Wales, so we had like our assessment, and she was like, because I was like, this is going to be amazing, we'll be able to learn about countries and cook and learn the language and do all of these things. She's like, none of that will count. She's like, yeah, that's great, and you can do it, but it's not part of the New South Wales curriculum, so none of that will count. What are you going to do from the curriculum? So I felt this immense pressure to like be the teacher and know all of these things, and so there was this expectation from a parent point of view. Plus, then the kids were like, "You're not my teacher. Like, I don't want to sit down at a table and do all these things." So it just went out the window quite quickly. And it took Louis. I mean, so we've changed things. Like, we've tried different things, and I've been pretty loose. And then I've gone like, we need to do some things. So like, let's just do this, and and we finally found a tutor. So they go to a tutor, which is similar sort of thing to what you guys do, but for older kids. She's a teacher. She's got 8 homeschooled children, and they go twice a week. It's amazing, and they love it. They can't wait to go. And
in terms that difference in their response, the fact that they love it, and they only need 2 days. We do 2 hours over the whole day. Sometimes it's 1 hour, and that's enough.
Yeah.
That is honestly enough. And when you get that response back from them, and you guys found how that worked for you, and then you can see that motivation and engagement for them,
it took Louis a year and a half before he started saying, I want to learn about this, or I want to try something new. A year and a half. Winnie's nearly 9, and she's only just started expressing interest in, like, can I do this? She wants to learn how to do piping cakes.
Yeah.
But she's obsessed with it. And it's like, this is brilliant. Like, she's actually found something that she wants to do all the time.
And those skills, she's probably researching, and so all those things that can tie in, or doing a writing about it, or eventually, like it's giving that space where they're going, I kind of get a say in what I want to learn about. Yeah. And you might write about it, or all of those things come in, and what that difference I think it makes on them in their own lead, their voice of themselves is just
it's amazing.
Yeah,
and like, it's a real eye opener to think that for it's taken that long, 2 years, for them to rekindle their passion for learning.
Yeah.
Like,
but you did it. But you still did it. Which is huge.
Yeah, it's great. It's so good to see. It's like breakthrough moment when they say, I want to do something. It's like, okay, I'm ready. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
but also trying to advocate that to your moderator too, in saying that they actually just need this time, and it's going to happen.
Yes,
trusting that process.
Yeah, I definitely got more confident with that whole moderating process as well. But I feel for parents, that is a massive pressure.
Yeah, like it is. We've tried to alleviate a little bit of that, having support documents that people can actually use part of our curriculum, and we've got assessment sheets that go through saying, from this particular lesson, what did your child learn? What were the outcomes that they learned?
Yeah, cool.
And it's at the end of every lesson that they can actually have this reflection time to then show the moderator, this is the reflection from that lesson. No, my child didn't get the skills straight away, but after 3 times doing the lesson, they got it. And now this is where they're at. And we don't want people to fear moderators or the assessors. We want them to love the process, because when you meet this person, they're technically working for you. They need to come in and help you be the best homeschool educator you can be. So the biggest thing I can say to parents is ask more questions.
Yeah.
If the moderator says, no, sorry, learning about worlds and languages, that's not going to tick the boxes. Say, okay, how can it tick the boxes?
Yeah.
What can I do? And how can my daughter use her piping on cakes to tick off literacy, numeracy, science? How can I do all these things? Okay, she's measuring and baking and doing all these things that have scientific elements to it. Can she look at the formulas that go into baking, and that's her science element? Then she's writing her own recipe, which is her literacy. Can she look at the different measuring cups and change the recipe by her different measurements and document all of that to see whether the recipe worked? And that's her mathematics. Like, how can you help me along this journey?
Yeah.
And that's what we want people to know. Their moderator and assessor is there to actually assist them and give them advice. Don't leave a moderating session feeling empty and as a failure. You've got to make sure before that person leaves that meeting with you, you are confident and you know where you're going in your homeschooling journey. And if you are, like, the wheels have absolutely fallen off the wagon, your child doesn't want to learn with you, they don't want you to be the home educator, say to the moderator, how can you help me? What are the tips and tools that I can use and the language I can use with my child? Do you have anything that you can help me with? Is there any educational support you can direct me to? Is there any YouTube videos or learnings? And ask for that advice. The more questions you can ask as a parent, the better. And the children will hear that and also know it's a safe space, no matter where you are in life, to ask more questions and get help.
Yeah.
It's a big learning for the kids to witness mum do that too.
Great tips. Your curriculum, you're in WA. Does it, like, I think that each state and territory seems to have like its own regulations, expectations. Like, from what I can gather, Queensland's pretty loose. Let's all go to Queensland. New South Wales is like super like strict. Melbourne's a bit in betweenish. I don't know what it's like over with you guys, but does your curriculum kind of work with all of those states, or are you specific to your?
I think from an early childhood viewpoint, I think no matter where you are, even with any curriculum, all the curriculum from state to state are different. The order that we should teach children these skills should always be the same. So, for example, you know, if we're looking at literacy, the term 1 of literacy is all oral language skills. So before children are even picking up and writing and using a pen and paper, they are clapping syllables, they are saying rhymes by listening to rhymes, because all of these skills in that order will then help them for when they are now starting to decode sounds or learn to read and write. So I think what we will need to do, we have aligned it with the Australian curriculum outcomes.
The WA.
WA,
WA. At the start of the curriculum, just a minute ago, but at the start of the curriculum book, it actually has WA outcomes. So the parents know exactly what this curriculum is ticking off in those, which is every single outcome. It is ticking off all of the numeracy and literacy outcomes. So the moderator can also see that this curriculum is designed around the WA curriculum, which I think, but like Paige, we have, like Paige said, we have gone over the different states to see what their curriculum outcomes. But for this particular age, it ticks all of them. It just, your moderator may be extra strict on wanting to know and see assessments on particular skills at a particular time, where maybe that's later in our curriculum. So they might want to see that earlier on, and it's like, well, no, that's in term 2, and we're trying to build the love for learning and education for the child. But it would, for this age group, it definitely ticks off most of the states. I would say all of them.
I think it would just be a matter of, and this is something that we should do in making it more accessible to that reach for supporting families, is just having one that has the Queensland specific outcomes. Because for me, it's the same thing, and that's why the age range is so broad from 3 to 7, because depending on where you're starting, it doesn't really matter the age. It's that we need to be starting with the same skills and just working through them from at any point. And then it's great if kids are coming out of the system in looking at what gaps they have, and we just helping to pinpoint, okay, where we're going to go from there to bring it back to where they're feeling good about their learning too.
And that's a really great point for the parents that have put their child in maybe schooling around 5 or 6 or even 7, and the child has missed, whether the child has ADHD, or there may be a learning difficulty, or the teacher may have just not given that particular child enough attention to make sure they understood those skills. It's kind of nice to go back to the curriculum that we've started and go from the very start with your child and see what they already know. If they already know certain things, you just flick to the next lesson. Yep, you're up to scratch with all of those skills. But if there's particular skills that are missed, maybe they're reading and writing, is actually lacking. No, they're not dyslexic. They've just missed their foundational skills of understanding how to decode words to fluently read.
Yeah.
And that's what we want parents to do, is go back to the very start of the curriculum. Don't start in term 3, start in term 1 and go through the sequential order to ensure your child is up to date with those
and
skills.
you're learning alongside each other, which is I really love as well. Because, I think that
totally.
Parents, they have that lack in confidence, and that's been one of the biggest things, even for us and with our families, and when we're having conversations, it's that parents don't feel confident. And I think, like what you said before, we're not recreating a classroom. We're not being that teacher that we know of. And it's just, how can we find how it's going to grow for us? And like you said, it might take 2 years. It might take that you find it and then realise, okay, this is our way.
Yeah, totally. I'm aware that we've kind of hit the hour, and I've got a couple of other things, if you're okay to go over time a little bit.
Yeah.
What was I going to... Now I forgot.
Tell that we can talk forever, so come back for part 2.
Oh, gosh, what was I going to say? Oh, just in terms of development, right? So you might have so you've got your 3 to 7-year-olds, and I know that you've got your amazing curriculum, so you're going to make sure that like all of these areas are being kind of done in progress. But okay, maybe from a parent's point of view, for a child that is in school, this is kind of what happened to us, is that Louis started to fall further and further behind with literacy specifically, and so it just became more difficult because they're expected to be more independent learners, and so if you can't read the instructions, you're fucked basically.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
So that was one of the reasons we pulled him out. But like when I've done a little bit of reading and research around children's development, that kind of like linear learning, like some kids don't read, some kids can read when they're 3, and some kids don't read until they're 11 or 12.
Yeah.
How do you work with that in your environment, or does it not come up?
Oh, it comes up
all the time.
So
yeah. Every child is so different.
I always said, for example, when I had a pre-primary class, or let's say year 1, and we have 30 children who are 6 years old, we have half of them who are working 6 years up. So we have half who are working at a 12-year-old level. Then we have the other half who are working at a below kindy level. For no other reason other than at this age, their skills are so different, and you can't ask, a fish to country. And one of the hardest things was having to assess so often and put that to a grade where we're putting that to, this is just where they're at now. And when we're looking at, it's that there is progression. Are we seeing that if we are teaching them the same thing with repetition and in different ways and in ways that work for them, which, first of all, not possible in a classroom of 30 children who have such a broad range of skills in lots of areas. It's that we're seeing the needle move, and are we seeing progress? And, there's lots of research behind boys and girls and the certain play they have and the different strengths they have in regards to their reading and their writing. Boys typically are more behind in writing below the ages of 7. Do we take that into account when we're having parent meetings and saying, oh, they're actually sitting at a D, but, then as 3 years progress, are they getting worse because they're not understanding it, or because their self-esteem is just so low because we don't have the capacity to be able to read it out, to actually see they do understand it, they just can't read that instruction?
And imagine how the child feels when it's like, okay, mum and dad, you're getting called in for a parent-teacher meeting because your child's falling behind. Imagine the child hearing that verbiage about themselves and how that is limiting their beliefs so much at that age, thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm falling behind, my classmates are better, I'm not smart enough. All of these beliefs start circling through their mind.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I currently tutor with a family, and to begin with, the tutoring was solely around self-esteem and her approach to when she was in we call it the danger zone, where it's the safe zone and the danger zone. When she's starting to feel, first of all, it's that embarrassment and that shame. And then it was the language on what to do when, and then again, girls, if they might not be understanding a concept, typically they do very neat writing, so the teacher may look like it's all happening very beautifully, but it's the skills of regulation, of self-confidence, in understanding what we can do to take responsibility and have the language, and that it doesn't mean that there's not progress being made and that they're not successful. So I think, with the curriculum it does sound very vast between 3 and 7, but I sit in the homeschooling room with a group of 10 children, and I have Skylar with us most of the time, who's 3, and we have a 7-year-old, and they all can listen to that same explicit teaching. And then when we start working individually, one child might be working at a little bit higher level in how they're applying that skill. And I mean, Skylar, she's kind of been a great, not going to say experiment, but she has been in this setting.
She doesn't know any different. She's raised through this.
And, in regards to, say, skills, like, say, if I'm teaching them to generate rhyme or to manipulate the first sound, Skylar can 95% of the time do it. And it's not because she's a genius, but it's not because, it's just because she has been
exposed to it so much.
And loves it. She loves being a part of that.
And she loves being with the big kids, and the big kids like being with the little ones and the middle age. So it's really beautiful seeing the dynamic between the 3 and 7, what we run in our in-person program. And that's why we ran the curriculum for that age group, is because we can see how that works. And for someone like what you said earlier about, I think it was your daughter, or I can't remember which child you said about, but they were falling behind in a certain subject. Yeah, Louis. So that's where we would say to a parent, if they are in mainstream schooling, we would say, instead of getting a tutor or instead of doing that, would you look at the option of just looking at our literacy unit and teaching that explicitly to your child, not making it homework, not making it extra curriculum, not putting extra pressure on them, but saying, hey, instead of, talking, communicating with the school and teacher, saying, instead of us bringing home homework, we're actually just going to focus on these particular skills in this curriculum to ensure my child, like you said, was falling behind, where I'm actually taking responsibility for my child's education. We're going to explicitly teach this particular unit of literacy at home to get my child up to where they need to be to follow the rest of the class or to get following the standard.
This is the hard thing, because I think even when if parents did take that responsibility, there's so many aspects that come into play in how they show that within that different setting. And I think a lot of the time, like, it might be the gap in learning because teachers cannot cater to all of the different places that children are at in different subjects, but we also don't have the time and space to hear how they can share their understanding as well.
Right.
So it's really hard, and I think that's where it's really hard for parents who are being told their children are not where they need to be. I hated high school and didn't do ATAR, but then absolutely loved uni because it was my interest base, and it wasn't because I wasn't a good learner. A good learner. It wasn't because I wasn't a strong learner. It just, the setting wasn't great for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case now with bringing that even back into these settings for children that it cannot possibly cater for their variety of needs and strengths and way that we learn.
Yeah.
So we give you a 25-minute answer to every question.
I love it. I don't have to say anything.
Sorry.
No. Don't ever be sorry. It's brilliant. It's such good information, and this is we just want to get the word out there about what you're doing. It's amazing. Let's talk about you guys very briefly, because we have gone over, and I'm conscious that you're busy working mums and doing all of the things, being amazing.
And vice versa.
Yeah, same to you.
Let's talk a little bit about your mission. Can we talk a little bit? I don't know if we can. Not when it comes to mission. Tell us about your mission, because I feel I don't know. I feel like when I look at your Instagram, when I was writing my notes, I was like, oh my God, I feel like this is big. I just feel like it's a movement, and that you, like I said at the beginning, you're pioneers in this space, and the fact that you are on social media, you're educating parents about it. It just feels like such an important pivotal point in the world to have people like you. And I get super excited about it. It's amazing.
Glad you get that the transparency of the Instagram is coming through then on what we're posting on social media, because we do want it to be about real raw parenting. That it's not sunshine and rainbows, and homeschooling is not easy when you're juggling all of the hats and you're doing all the things as a mother, or even if your children are in the schooling system, you're still juggling all of the things being a parent. So that's firstly what I want to say.
Thank you.
It's nice to be recognized for that.
I think
so. Mission.
When your mum's trying to do a business and you're doing all these things, they keep saying, be really clear and strong on your mission. It's something we have struggled with because it is so multifaceted in who we want to support and how we want to do that, because we focus on the children. Then focus on the children, we're big believers we don't know what we don't know. And that's why we're wanting to put that power to families. Then we're wanting that reach to move out into actually looking at settings and how we can support teachers in moving away from these systems and creating what we do. So I think...
So mission is really to simplify education, to alleviate the pressure on the children's nervous systems, to give them a love for learning, and to empower families that they can reclaim that they can be the educator of their family, and it can be done simple and effectively without any pressure. And it may be a juggle of time and maybe finances, or working full time, and these families having to juggle. But
we have a choice. We have a choice,
and giving parents those choices is just that they know that there's another alternative instead of mainstream schooling. That's what we really want to do. Give people those options and choices, and know that there is a curriculum out there that we are developing. From 7 to 12 is our next age gap, that we are developing that is in the process, and that we can support people long term. Once they've started the curriculum with MotherMinds, we want that schooling education to go right through their whole life.
I think the mission is to support and provide competent families in reclaiming the power in living aligned, and how that always changes.
How many times have we written a mission statement? So many times. And we keep going, we forgot this, we've got to add that. That's so crucial. That's the bit. And then we're like, we changed it again.
We have a choice. I think that is
so much.
That we have a choice. That, for me, that is the biggest thing in that. Yeah. We have a choice, we have a voice, and there's support in that too. I think that's what's missing. And parents feel like they don't have an option to advocate for their children and for themselves. So this was a small way that we could, this is how we can bridge that gap. And the outcome of that is going to be huge for the future of our children, for our futures as mothers.
It's a really, really interesting time. And like being part of, the homeschooling journey as well for my kids, I feel like I wonder if schools will even be a thing, eventually.
I think
it might take a while to get rid of them, but to have more sort of niche, little pockets of communities where you've essentially got a school, right? But it's a homeschool school.
Yes, but we have, and this is
and that's another thing. The school.
This is why I don't think schools will, because there is a purpose on why they want children to be put in systems and taken away from their parents, and that's why having this push. I don't know if it's only in Western Australia, but there's now free kindy, full-time kindy coming out. So there is a certain a funnel in how we're still wanting the economy to go, and I feel like it will be a very, very long time before that's let up. And same with the language that we use. It's we're in lots of boxes on what that can look like. But we call it Sunflower School, and then we completely removed the word school because we felt like that had a connotation.
It's hard, isn't it?
Then we did Sunflower Program, and then it was Sunflowers, and then it was Sunflowers Co-op, Sunflowers Homeschooling, Sunflowers Tutoring. We're going through the evolution of what is that Goldie? Where is the Goldie? The parents love, the children love, we love, it encompasses our vision. So to be honest, the amount that we talk every day, we just evolve the mission statement, what we're doing with the program, how it's going, and every day we do a reflection. Every single day without fail, we will do either a 20-minute voice message reflection, we'll be on the phone, or we live 6 minutes away, so we just come to each other And we do the reflection in person. But that reflection is so crucial because we are so deeply passionate about evolving this space.
Yeah. You can tell. It's amazing. Yeah.
And bringing along everyone on the journey.
Yeah.
Yes, brilliant. I am like super appreciative of you taking the time, because I know that you have had to kind of say no to some other interviews just because you have got a very full schedule. You're obviously women on a mission. It's amazing. Like, appreciate everything you're doing. We're going to get people to find you on Instagram. That's like the main place to find you, right? Some really, really cool stuff going on there. I have no fucking idea how you have time to make reels. Like, I'm like, they're doing all of these other things. How can they make such good reels?
Thank you. Oh God, Paige is the expert. She's like, there's the tripod and there's the phone. And then I'm like, wait, what's happening? She's like, right, this is what we're doing. Let's go. And I'm like, we're on. This is what we're doing. It's amazing. She's all ready. And then it's just like, okay, this is what we're saying. This is what we're doing. Okay, great. That's the
It's amazing. Yeah, brilliant. Like, that's a whole job in itself. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Look, thank you so much.
I
love your work. It's been great to chat to you. Brilliant.
Thank you. You too. Vice versa. Thank you.